Hello everyone, it's MC here, and we're back to talk about team building again. This time we're going to talk about magic, sword, and some of the features of the current meta in regards to team building. So our agenda for today is we're going to take a look at a summary. Oh, and before that, if you haven't watched these two videos before, I'll leave the link in the description. Or if you're new to the game, you may want to take a look into these two videos because I explain how the buff and debuff works, and the Kaine team gives a little bit more details into how to fill the roles of each unit. So you should watch that first if you haven't done that yet. Then I'm going to give you a summary of the current status of team building, and then we're going to dive deep into a sword team and a couple of magic teams that I think are working pretty well in the current version of the game. So let's get right into it. As a summary of everything, the current team building boils down to a few somewhat simple guidelines, and those are you want to use Shana if you have her. And the reason is pretty simple. She basically makes it so that you don't need to worry about anything related to damage mitigation. You basically get 4 turns of invulnerability for free by using 2 times her EX skill, Operazione Eterno. And so the team the units just cannot die. Yeah, they can die from overkill, but those units are probably going to be in the back row anyways and get resurrected by the Dark Knight. So Shana is really a great character. If you don't have her, you have to work around the team building strategy to include a taunt and probably some extra damage mitigation, which you absolutely can ignore if you have her in the team. Also, Shana can cast Rehabilitate, um, to deal with bosses that inflict weird and annoying statuses like paralysis. So she really does it all in terms of mitigation. She's a great character, has a very long shelf line. So if you can, you should probably get her. She's basically going to go into every team. Another feature of current teams is that they are all going to have high hit counts. So even in teams that have one damage dealer, it's going to be a damage dealer that has very many hits, and the more hits, the better. Because basically, when dealing with high level teams and gear that is very good, the number of hits times the damage cap is basically what determines the party damage. So you want a party that has a very high hit count. And what I mean by hit count is hit count by the damage dealers, of course. And we also got a new artifact that is basically a staple in all teams, especially considering that Shana's BP regen from Operazione Eterno, it gets it extended by Mabel and Lucetta. So the secondary damage dealer, the character may not have a regeneration to cast Chinook with 3 BP on both turns. And this artifact, it basically solves that problem. So if the backpack unit, the unit in the back row, has 5 or more BP and does not consume BP, then the unit in the front row gets an extra BP. This is what matters here. So that means that without casting anything, without including any special item or special unit to cast BP regen, the secondary damage dealer, or maybe the primary, depending on the team, gets the extra BP for free on the second break turn, which is insane because it's basically free. It just takes 1 slot of the 3 slots, not at every unit can be promoted to 6-star, basically every unit. So this is a great artifact. Get it if you didn't already. And then finally, sword teams and magic teams, both variations. Sword is the strongest at the moment because of how many times Dark Knight hits. So, but basically, this can be obtained by using Dark Priestess or Black Signa and Hikari. So Hikari is great because he hits all elemental weaknesses except Dark, and with Dark Signa you can basically hit all elemental weaknesses. So these two teams, they hit everything except Dark in the case of Hikari. And moving forward, this is going to be a trend in the metagame. Teams that can deal with many types of weaknesses. And then moving in the future, we'll get Moruso EX, and she's basically going to completely power creep Dark Priestess out of every team. But until then, Dark Priestess is a good choice to enable teams to hit all weaknesses. All right, so this is the summary of team building as it stands in the current version of the game. Let's take a look at some teams and see them at work. So first, let's take a look at a sword team. So this is a 5-turn plan that can easily be turned into a 6 or 7-turn plan, depending on how strong the enemy is. So if you turn this plan into a 6-turn plan, you basically want the EX skill of Dark Knight and the EX skill and the ultimate of Pardis to be delayed, so they are still active during the break. And you get a few extra turns to debuff more with the Dark Priestess and with Signa. But this team already does so much damage in this configuration that they can take the vast majority of the bosses in the game. So the idea is to equip the Cosmic Fan in the Dark Priestess to extend the Elemental Exploit and cast her ultimate on turn 3. So what this does is that if the ultimate gets extended, what this does is that it will hit Pardis for the 3 turns, so no problem there. And the extension, because of Lucetta in the back row, it gets extended for the Dark Knight. So no worry there. I think the most problematic part here would be if the ultimate does not get extended, and Parties doesn't hit one of the weaknesses. So so if that happens, then some changes will probably have to be made. But this is in general, this is going to work well. Also, not to mention that if you have an A4 that does the extension, for example, Hanit EX A4 extends debuffs. Oh, I'm sorry, Hasumi's A4 extends buffs unconditionally. Also, Primrose EX A4, and since these are Gen pool units, it's not that difficult to obtain this items. So, and then you don't have to worry about Dark Signa or Dark Priestess being full health. So, I mean, and then there is no need for Dark Priestess, obviously, if the enemy is weak to Sword or Dark, so you can slot in any other unit you want. So the plan is somewhat simple. First thing, we kill everybody in the back row to grant the Dark Knight all of his buffs, while making the front row invulnerable with Shanna. So we just can't get killed. We use media to shave some shields. The shield count for this team is about 36 to 40. So if the enemy has more shields, you can either use Canary, and I'm going to show a variation of this team with Canary in a moment, or use an ally, or extend the fight by one more turn, for example, to shave whatever shields you need to. So that's the idea. We use Dark Knight's triple cast to nuke 15 times, and the rest of the actions are just buff with Pardis and debuff with Signa. So perform some of these actions to maximize damage. I should mention here that Media's ultimate for physical teams is excellent because she buffs 20% physical attack and sword attack. I mean, all physical damage. So she basically improves the damage of the party by 40% alone. Not to mention the 2 extra the follow-up attacks. So media is really, really good for physical teams. So that's the plan. And I couldn't get any fight that would survive Dark Knight Dark Knight's action. So what I did was I went to Gertrude EX3 just so she would die so fast and I could go through the process here. So let's get to this fight. I'm going to accelerate things here. And I'm going to explain the actions as they happen. So the first thing we want to do is to kill the back row to get the buffs, stay invulnerable, buff with Pardis, so we're done with with all of the buffs that we need, and shave some shields. Of course, Gertrude has the shield protection, so it's just going to be 1. So just ignore the shield shaving part, and we can focus on the damage part. Again, I had to go with Gertrude because it was the fight that the enemy wouldn't die with only Dark Knight's action. So after this turn, we're basically going to be done with all the buffs, regular buffs that we need, and we're going to be missing some debuffs and some ultimate buffs. Now we cast Dark Knight's Oath, and we cast Dark Knight's Oath on Shanna because she didn't die yet, so she will get resurrected, so we can reuse her next turn. And in the meantime, we can use Solon's EX skill to shave some shields. Of course, only one for Gertrude, but 6 in general for general fights. Oh, by the way, the reason we want Solon's Oath here is because Dark Knight's potency up coming from his EX skill only lasts for 2 turns. So we need a third turn of potency up, and Solon fills that gap really well. So what we're seeing here is the Oath, Artist Oath combined with Dark Signa's debuff. We also took the time to charge the rest of Signa's ultimate so we can cast it together with a different action, so we gain some extra tournament. So as you can see, Shanna's invulnerability is really good. No character can die with. During the third turn, we're going to set up Dark Knight so that he gets the potency up during the next turn. You always want to use his EX skill before the break turn. Of course, we're not breaking Gertrude, but assume that next turn would be the break turn in a regular fight. So what we can do here is we get to debuff, or we could shave shields with Signa, that depending on the fight. Since we're not breaking here anyways, I just chose to use an extra debuff. So we're going to get to the attack point here at some point. Yeah, so the EX skill, initial pet. So the initial pet that I kind of forgot to use here, but usually you'd want to use a pet to buff DK's attack. It lasts for 2 turns because of the champion. Dark Priestess lets everyone exploit all weaknesses. So we know that Dark Knight is going to hit everything. Normally he would not hit any weakness here, but now he can hit fire, and that solves the problem. Any elemental weakness would do, really. So now we're at the point where we knew. So in general, what we would like here is we could have Shanna help shave shields for the break if that's necessary. Remember that there was Dark Priestess Oath, so Shanna could shave shields in about every fight that has elemental weaknesses, if necessary, before Media comes in and breaks. So this is the break alongside with a debuff. This would regularly shave 12 shields. And this fight Pardis got hit, which is not ideal. This would be the break. You can still see how much damage both Dark Knight and Pardis deal, right? You can slow it down for the last hits here. Sorry about that. This is the break turn. And remember, since we didn't break the regular team, or in a regular fight, this would be twice the damage. And that's Gertrude EX3 in 5 turns without breaking, just to showcase the power of this sword team. If you need more shield break, and you can live without the extra 30% damage that Signa would help deal, then you can change the team and remove Signa and include Canary for some extra shield shaving capabilities. So you can use Ruby Burst on turn 1 and move on to defense debuff on turn 3. If Canary has the Cosmic Dagger, it's great because the anti-guard is going to last for 3 turns, and we want Media on the front row because of the follow-up attacks. So this variation can go up to 48 shields, which is pretty nice. We can even squeeze more shield shaving if damage is not so much of a concern by using Canary's Ruby Burst on turn 3 to shave 11 shields as well. So that's one possible variation. In terms of magic teams, let's talk a little bit about a classic team with Hikari. Hikari is great because he doesn't really need too much support to hit multiple weaknesses. He only can't hit dark. So we don't need the Dark Priestess here. And this is, but what he really needs is damage cap up. So Mabel provides a 20% elemental attack that Renew EX can extend when the unit swaps roles. So that's great because he can easily get his 30% elemental attack passive kept, no problem, just from Mabel and the presence of Renew EX. So the idea when using this team is to pre-buff Hikari's damage cap up so that he can hit very hard since he's the only damage dealer. And we use Crick to help him get more, to double the potency up that he gets. Crick can also do some debuffing. So ideally, during the last 2 turns or the break turn, we want units to use damaging skills so that Hikari follows up with his passive. He has the light follow-up. So we want Hikari to hit as many times as possible during the break turns. So during the first turn, we cast a Cygnus debuff that will kick in on turn 4, which is good. As usual, Shana will make the team invulnerable for basically the whole fight. And the rest of it is spent buffing and debuffing as necessary. So let's take a look at an example fight for this one as well. So this is kind of a tough fight because Oscar has a lot of health, so that's why I picked this fight, so he wouldn't just die in 1 turn. The idea here is to, as I said, buff and debuff as much as possible in 5 turns, and get Hikari's damage to as high as a value as possible. So we start here by charging up some ultimates, giving invulnerability to our team, activating Hikari's passive or his onslaught form. And from now on, what we're doing is observe that we are pre-buffing. Since we have Mabel here, the potency up from Solon does not last more than 1 turn, but the damage cap up goes to 2 turns. Then afterwards, when we use Radio EX, it's going to step again. So we'll get 4 turns of damage cap up, which is what we want. And we don't want to use Renew EX or Solon's ultimates during the break turns because that would remove one of the follow-up attacks from Hikari. So, of course, this is just one of many possible configurations of a magic team with Hikari, but I think this one does really well because it deals with the problem of Hikari needing a lot of damage cap up. So we just use Shana to become invulnerable again, as always. Do some extra debuffing here. We could use also Lynette EX in the team if we wanted to for the 15% extra debuff, but I think this team works pretty well. So this was recorded before Lynette EX, but you'll see the power of the damage cap up during this turn. So what we want to do is to ideally I should have used a damaging skill from Free. So that's kind of not optimal, but anyways, Hikari will still hit like a truck, as you can see. So Oscar has almost no health, and this was actually useful, so I could show off the damage cap up, the effect of the damage cap up. So as you can see, this damage cap up, it has 100k extra cap up because of Solon and Renew EX, and when they get upgraded versions of their ultimates, it's going to become 100k cap up for each of them, which is going to help even more. Of course, if you have damage cap up accessories that increase elemental attack, they would definitely go into Hikari EX in this team. So now I would like to take a look at a different team that can deal with fire, ice, and lightning. And the reason it can deal with fire, ice, and lightning is because Dark Signa, she has a skill that makes all skills exploit fire, ice, and lightning. And very conveniently, Oswald gives a follow-up attack every time an ally uses fire, ice, or lightning. So we can exploit that. And we take advantage of this fact and use some characters that hit both or all three of the elements to maximize the follow-up attacks. And we use the we use Fel with 2 BP. Oh, this would be in the cases where the front row unit would need an extra BP. So in this case, what we want to do is we want to equip the BP artifact on Signa. If we had a damage dealer that wasn't Cyrus, because Cyrus is going to be using his ultimate, so he doesn't need BP. So in this case, we equip the BP artifact on Signa just so we can feed Oswald with 3 BP during all of the break turns. So we can also use Fel at 2 BP here to enable the BP artifact. In this case, it's not needed because we're going to be using the ultimate at some point. So yeah, let's take a look at a fight that takes advantage of this. Oh, and by the way, for action economy, since we want Oswald acting so much, we need to use pets to charge basically many of the ultimates of the characters that are in the team. Anyways, let's take a look at a fight, and I'm going to explain as the fight goes on. So let's take Murgardi, or we could take a look at Murgardi EX3. So let's do that. So Murgardi is only weak twice, and that's enough, because Dark Priestess allows the team to exploit that weakness. We're going to see how useful Shanna is in this fight again as well. Yep. That's not what I meant to do. Let's do it again. Okay, so we start by using a fast Shanna to become invulnerable. Observe that Isla hits all weaknesses, so we're really doing some work in the shield shaving round here. Also, we already have so many buffs that Lemaire can shave a very decent amount of shields as well. Would have thought that Lemaire would be useful. Anyways, look at this. Cyrus buff is very convenient as well. So this turn is our preparation turn. So Murgardi has one too many of a shield, so I just used an ally to shave the last shield I was needed, so that Lynette EX could break 9 shields using the follow-up attacks. Of course, we get our invulnerability in place. As you can see, it's extremely useful. None of our units can die. And we do some ultimate buff and debuff and potency up here. So our magic units hit like a truck. Now at 9 shields, Lynette EX can break and inflict a very large amount of debuffs. Generally, Lynette EX would be very good for teams that only hit even one elemental weakness, because the others that get implanted would keep her passive activated. So for Hikari EX, it's not that great, because, I mean, Hikari EX will just remove all of the implants. So she's not as good as she is in teams that don't hit absolutely all of them. So take a look at Cyrus hits here. Everything hits cap, so it would be nicer to have some extra damage cap up, but on this account I'm not picking up any A4s. Gotcha, A4, so this is what we get. If you have damage cap up A4s, this is going to look a lot better. Get Oswald hitting cap so many times. The mayor also hits very hard because of the number of debuffs. So that's another elemental fight. Again, it deals with fire, ice, and lightning. So what if the enemy has one of those weaknesses, this team can do a lot of damage. So to sum it up, I think these 3 simple fights show how good Shanna is in terms of defending the team, and she can use Rehabilitate if necessary. So Shanna is really the MVP. Damage dealers will get power crept, but so far Shanna's kit is so unique and being able to just ignore all of the boss's attacks is so good that she has a very long shelf life, and she's a great character. Teams now can deal with multiple weaknesses. So with Dark Priestess and with Hikari EX, the big trend now is, well, it doesn't really matter what are the weaknesses of the boss. This somewhat started with Kaine, but now the damage potential is a lot higher. The artifact of energy allocation is very good. This means you don't need an extra item or a unit to cast a BP regeneration skill. High hit count is very important for damage. This was true and is still true, and most teams, late game teams, are designed around this. The damage cap up accessories they matter a lot, and the reason they matter so much is because the number of hits times the damage cap is basically what determines the damage, and it's also the reason damage cap up items are so good and so relevant. For example, Black Knight hit 17 times in one turn with his triple cast plus media follow-up. And Hikari X can hit 16 times by using his ult, counting the 2 hits at the start of the turn, and by having one follow-up attack per ally. I hope this was helpful. This somewhat summarizes the state of the game in terms of maximizing hit count and the fact that teams can deal with multiple weaknesses, and I hope this is useful to help you build and improve your teams. Thank you.